All right, well, good morning. How are we doing? Awesome. Let's try that again. Good morning. How are we doing? Awesome. Well, welcome to Kensington. My name is Hayden. It is awesome to be together. I want to invite you guys to stand with us. We're going to start off singing. But before we do that, really, I just want to take a look back at this past weekend. We had our move out gathering over this past Friday and Saturday, and it was really awesome just to be able to see so many people in our church, in our community, come together to really dive into to hear some different aspects of how we move out in our leadership and in our spheres of influence. And really within that, we were just saying, man, God is doing so many awesome things in and through our church. And so today we really just wanted to start off by singing and praising Him. So let's go ahead and let's sing this together. When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating your promises to me. Yeah. Now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, so you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Whoa, yeah. My mind says I'm not good enough. God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Awesome. Well, again, it is great to be together. I just want to invite you guys to keep singing with us. Here we go. He's coming on the clouds. every chain will break. His broken hearts declare his praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? 'Cause our God is the Lion of Judah, and he's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. And our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. So open up the gates. So open up the gates. Make way before the King of Kings. The God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord? Come on, let's sing. 'Cause our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. And our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. Every knee will bow. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? And our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. And our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him.
Nice. So good, dude. How are you guys doing? Good. You can have a seat. So it's good to see everybody. Is the windstorm began outside yet? Does anybody get blown away yet or no? No, look, somebody's shaking their head yes. Like, yes, totally is. So I was there going to be like 50-mile-per-hour gust. Well, whatever. What do you do? I don't even know what to respond to it. So isn't it exciting? I love the end of the song, like just watching what God can do, like the Lord Almighty, and like nothing can stop him. You ever wished in life that you had the ability, like when life tried to stop you or something got in your way or somebody pulled out in front of you, you could just run right through it, right? Maybe not the road rage part. But anyhow, you know what I mean? That part of it, and I'm like, I'm really convinced in my heart, and I don't want to put it on you, but I'm telling you, in my heart, I'm convinced that's what God is up to and what he's doing around here. Like, we were just reflecting over the past 60 days of what God's been up to, and we've been able to launch a men's ministry that's been really spectacular, and watching guys get together. And literally one night, like we did a euchre tournament, and almost 60 guys just together for 3 hours. hanging out and talking, and literally had a guy come up in the hallway the week after and said that was the best thing I've done like in the whole year. And he's talking about how he connected to people. And our ladies ministry launched with like 85 women, and I'm like, holy cow, it's been unbelievable, and we're going to do that again. And I literally had a lady pull me to the side, and she said, I went to that and I was really just drained of hope. And she said, coming off that Tuesday night, I really filled up, I felt renewed. And I'm like, to me, I don't know about you, but that makes it worth it when you hear those things, right? And I stop and I consider what's going on around here and how God's moving. And I like literally in the past 60 days, we've had one of our highest attendances we've had in the past like several months. Also, in our kids ministry keeps growing. You guys got to quit having babies. No, I'm just kidding, right? And we had like 167 kiddos in there, not to mention like 35 middle schoolers. And it just like, we did baptism a few weeks back, and tons of people came up to get baptized. That's why I kept Ashlyn up. One of them was Ashlyn. She jumped in and got baptized, and that was incredible, right? And so tell them, yeah, give her a hand. Tell them kind of what you shared in first service, like, why did you do that? What was going on in your heart?
So I had wanted to get baptized for like a really long time. Since we started going to Kensington, it really felt heavy on my heart to do so. And when it came around to all the dates, I was just like, I kind of forgot that it was happening. So I kept saying, you know, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time. And then it came to the morning of baptisms, and I kind of knew it was going on, but I forgot to sign up. So I was like, it's no big deal, I'll just do it next time again. And so I got here, and we got into service and everything, and they got through all of the baptisms, and I was like, okay, this is great. And I was kind of thinking like, you know, I really wish I would have done this. And I was like, no, they're already through everything. You can't go out there, and I'm fully dressed. I'm in a flannel and jeans. Like, you can't go up there in that tub and get dipped in all that those clothes. And God kind of crept into the back of my mind. He was like, well, Ashlyn, you have a gym bag in your car that's been sitting there for a month that you haven't used yet.
Aha. Go God.
I was
like that.
Okay, but I don't want to go up there. You know, they're already done, and I don't want to, you know, prolong it anymore. And he was like, well, Ashlyn, you know, Jeremiah just said that anybody else wants to come up, you just go up there. So I was like, okay, whatever. And so I still was kind of on edge. And then they started playing Grateful that day, which is, we sing it a lot up here. And it's one of the songs that I auditioned with when I started singing in the band. So that was just kind of like the final push I needed. And I just like broke down and ran up here.
Well, we're proud of you, girl. Love that. Thank you. I love really what we're about, and I'm convinced what Jesus was about. And he was never about religion, but he was about relationships, right? He really was. And about relationships, when they come in contact with Jesus Christ, everything begins to shift for the better. Hope begins to exist where it was not found once. You know, it's like God does these things. It's so crazy. I didn't even tell Hayden, our worship guy, is normally my workout partner, and I worked out with a guy named Adam Narker yesterday. And thank you for bailing on me, by the way. So I'm just kidding. He didn't bail. He's got 2 little kids at home. He was taking care. Give him a hand. He was taking care of sick babies. His wife was working. He was taking care of babies. And no, so this guy called over, and he's like, hey, can you give us a hand? And we're like, yeah. And so we give him a spot, tell him good job, high five. And he goes, I thought you were a nice guy. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, have you been stalking me across some gym? He said, no, we came to your Christmas Eve services, and you seem really friendly, but I didn't know if it was just a bunch of BS. No. I said, no, I'm usually just pretty happy-go-lucky, you know, and I'm not getting in trouble with my wife or something for wanting to go to the gym too much, like last week. But it was so great, and I just thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, God. And it like reinvigorated me to think, like, as we conclude in March of the Everyone campaign for Clarkston campus, we're going to talk about what would it look like to go permanent and build that building and get a sports center and get a fitness center and do all these things that we could do in the community and build relationships. And I was like so fired up, man, and excited. I don't know about you, but do you ever get excited about dreaming big dreams? Like, that's how I am. I don't want to not dream and just get through life. And so to say all that, I just want to tell you that's just been the past 60 days, right? We got several more months ahead of us. And so I just want to encourage you, lean in, buckle up, get ready, because we're really going to press and ask God to do unthinkable things. Because if we're not, what are we doing, right? What are we doing? I just want to pray for us, for boldness, for courage, for optimism, for a new day, to make 2019 a turning point for many of us. God, we ask you to give us strength. You told Joshua to have strength and courage, God, to go into a place he had never been before, to do things he had never done, God, to dream about things he didn't even dare dream. But Jesus, I'm convinced you didn't just ask that to people thousands of years ago. You're asking that of us today. You're asking for marriages to be reconciled. That's why you've got 85 people in marriage groups on top of the marriage groups we've got. God, you're asking for relationships to be healed. You're asking for hope to come back again. You're asking for us as a community to lean into you, Jesus, and to watch and see what you can do. God, this is the journey of faith. And so I ask you, give us strength, give us courage to do those things. May you bless in your name, the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Well, we're in week number 3 of vertical marriage. Have you guys been loving this series, by the way? We do. I wish my beautiful bride could be here today. She's not able to because we have 2 sick kiddos at home. But I love having Maria up there. And people are like, you should have Maria up there more and you get off the stage. And I'm like, thanks. And then when I leave the conversation, I'm like, was that a backhanded compliment? You know, like, no, she's been amazing. I'm super fortunate to have her. And today we're talking about the idea of what does it look like when you press in for us fellas to really intentionally love our wives? And this other idea of respect. And Dave and Ann do an incredible job of almost 40 years on journey together and weaving wisdom and scripture and practical advice. So whether you're married or you're single or whatever, I'm telling you, if you just want to know how to have a great relationship, lean in and listen and watch. And it's been spectacular. We were talking with Dave over this past week. Almost 6 million people heard them this week on some of the Family Life broadcasts. Isn't that incredible? Stop and think about. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And you and I get to be part of this story. So listen up, and I think you're going to experience what I did. You're going to learn a lot today by listening to them. So.
Well, you might have noticed this, but men and women are different, right?
We're different.
Yeah, we're different. We're not just talking about physically, men and women are different. They're wired completely different. In fact, I like to illustrate it this way. You know, if you take Barbie and Ken doll, and you look at how little boys and little girls play with these things, you know, it's interesting. I don't know a lot about Ken and Barbie, but I do know this. Have you ever noticed Barbie owns everything? She's got the house, the car, the pool. She owns everything. Ken's a freeloader. He owns nothing. Anyway, so think about this. If you would give these little dolls to a couple little girls, what would they do?
Oh, I mean, it's obvious. They would talk to each other like, oh, I like your little bathing suit.
I mean, it'd be like this. You have, you know, Barbie over here going, oh, I like your swimming suit that I bought for you. I own that thing. I like your hair. That's a nice cut. I like what you're doing. So, I mean, they would communicate the entire time. Talk, all right? Well, here's the thing. If you gave these little dolls to 2 little boys, and again, I'm making generalities. This isn't true of all boys and all girls. It's just a general statement, but it's somewhat true. If you gave these little dolls to little boys, they would do this. Hey, I mean, that's probably what they would do. Why? Because boys and girls, men and women are different.
Ours
right?
actually had little guys, and they put firecrackers on them and exploded them. But yeah,
Into
it can be so different.
And so here's the amazing thing. So you bring that differences into marriage. And again, we're not saying all men are this way and all women are that way, but we are different. And we're completely wired differently. So then we come into a marriage and we're like, okay, I've got to figure out what her biggest need is and what his biggest need is. So here's what we're going to do in this session. We're going to talk about the number 1 need of men and the number 1 need of women. Again, it's generalities. It may be flipped in your relationship, but generally this is pretty much true.
And we're really hoping that you will become an expert of what your spouse needs. Like, that's our goal.
Yeah. So let's talk first about men. Is that all right?
Yeah.
We'll start with men. Okay, let me ask the ladies out there. Yell out right now. What is the number 1 need of your man? Or generally, what's the number 1 need of men? Did I hear you say sex? Yeah, I think you're right. No, it isn't sex. It's actually respect. I'm sure some of you said respect as well. And sex and respect, same thing. So anyway, it's respect. And it's interesting to think of what that means. And I didn't know this. You know, I had no idea when I chose to follow Christ my junior year in college that the Word of God, the Bible, actually spoke practically about relevant things. I honestly didn't know that. And it's interesting when you open this book and you start to read about marriage and relationships.
And it says a lot about marriage and relationships.
There's so much wisdom in here, it's amazing. And so one of the premier chapters on marriage is in a New Testament book called the Book of Ephesians. And you go toward the end of that book, and the Apostle Paul, who wrote that letter to a church in a city called Ephesus, that's why it's called Ephesians, he just starts outlining some principles for marriage. And it's really interesting. At the end of that section, let me read it to you in Ephesians 5, he says this. He says, however, each one of you also must love his wife. He's talking to husbands here. He must love his wife as he loves himself. and the wife must respect her husband. It's interesting that he says to men, love your wife. We're going to talk about that in a second. But he says to women, not love your husbands, respect your husband. You know what he's getting at? And I believe the Bible is inspired by God. God specifically inspired these words. He's getting at the number one need, women, of your man, of your sons, of your dad, but especially of your husband is respect. He longs. I think that's our number one need, and not only a need, it's our want.
Well, and I had never heard that. I didn't hear that growing up. And then I get married, and we've been married a while, and I hear that, and somebody reads it in the Bible. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, okay, like what does that mean? You're awesome.
And so I'm going to explain to the women out there what it means, and then Ann will explain to the men what it means for a wife to be loved. So let's talk about respect for a minute. And I just like to say it this way. Every man needs, I think, wants his wife to be his biggest cheerleader, to cheer him on. And I always add this in. You know, if you came home, wives, and we came home and you were wearing a cheerleader sweater,
gosh.
you know, a big D on the front, we should sell those instead of our book.
Unbelievable.
That's what we should sell. Anyway.
Just ignore all that.
All right, ignore that. So, but it really is. It's like, okay, what's respect look like? It looks like we want someone to cheer us, right? And it's interesting. You can tell when a man is feeling disrespected two ways. They'll either respond in anger when they feel disrespected, or they'll withdraw. Seriously, we men are wired for respect, and so we go wherever we're being respected. And I'll never forget, Ann and I were asked, actually Ann was asked to speak to a mother's a preschooler, and she invited me to go with her. So we show up on the stage. I haven't said anything to her about what I'm going to say. I just think I'm going to tell women how men are wired type deal.
And these women are all excited, like, oh, this will be good to get a man's perspective. So Dave starts talking, and he starts sharing these things I've never heard. He's like, women, I don't think you understand, but as little boys and as men, as boys growing up, there's usually someone in our lives cheering for us, like, good job, you're the man, look at you. You know, it could be a mom or a dad or a coach or a grandparent or a teacher, someone saying, you're so good at that, way to go, and he's clapping. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And so then he goes, I played college football, so on Saturdays, you know, I'm a quarterback, and so there's people in the stands cheering for me, clapping for me.
Hundreds of thousands of people, as I remember.
And he goes, and then I met Ann, and she basically says, of all the men in the world, I choose you, Dave Wilson, and she's cheering for me. And I'm sitting on the stool like, this is good. I like this. Like, yeah, this is really good. He goes, and then we're married for a while, and we walk in the door, and all we hear is, boo, boo. And as Dave's booing, he's turning to me.
I was actually standing over here, you know, giving this talk, and I go, boo! And I haven't told her any of this. I didn't even know I was going to say this. I thought, this is from God. This is awesome. No. Boo! And so I look over, and I'm like, uh-oh.
I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
I'm in big trouble.
And I'm thinking to myself, I do not boo you. And so I don't even know how the talk ended. Do you know how it ended?
I have no idea. All I know is we got in the car. It's one of those drives home. You know, like, oh, no, this isn't going to go well. And so I
say to him, like, what was that? I said, do you think I boo you?
And I said, well, you don't literally boo me, but it doesn't feel like you're trying to help me. It feels like you don't like me.
And I said, this is my exact words, I am helping you. Like, you do not understand. Like, people see you, oh, you're Dave Wilson, but I see the real you, and I'm like, you need some help. I'm just helping you to be a better man.
And so what ended up happening is we went on this journey. It wasn't a year. It was several years. But you really started to understand what makes me come alive.
I think what happened, Dave said, you critique me. When I do something, you always tell me how I should have done it, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Even with the kids, I feel like I can't do anything right. You're always kind of fixing me. And here's what I thought. I thought, am I being his mom? Because no husband wants to be married to his mom. And so I took note of what I was thinking in my head about Dave, and then I took note of what I was speaking to him. And I'm telling you, it was bad. What I thought about him wasn't good because I was continually thinking, don't do that, don't put that there, why aren't you doing this? Well, you should do this, why aren't you doing this with the kids? I was continually in my head critiquing him, and really, it was not pretty. And so then I realized, wow, I am saying things negative all the time. Like, he'd take out the trash. Like, he should take out the trash. You know, that's his job.
And all I can say is...
I never even thanked him for any of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a long time ago, but all I know is those 2 symptoms, I withdrew and I got angry. And you didn't even know those were signs of disrespect. Now it's like, oh, when you see that, you should step back and say, what did I do or say that made my man feel disrespected? And all I can tell you, it's been decades since then, she has become my biggest cheerleader. I am not kidding. She started believing in me, started speaking. I mean, she would say, you're an amazing man. You're an amazing man of God. And I would honestly think, no, I'm not. I would even say, no, I'm not. It's like she says, this is who you are, and I'm like, no, I'm here. But here's what happens, and women, you got to understand this. When a person speaks life into a man, when you as the wife speak life into your husband or to your sons, it breathes life in us, and we want to become the man you say we are. And I wasn't the man she said I was, but I wanted to become that man. Does that make sense? And so she would say that, and it's like I started to rise up to become the man she said I was, that I didn't even believe I was yet. But guess what? I became a better man because of her belief and her respect and her cheering for me. She no longer boos me. And I'm not saying our marriage is perfect or any of that, but it's just like, oh my gosh, she started to speak
I can still speak truth and say what I think, but it's wrapped in love now. It's very different.
And so here's what we're gonna do, especially for the women. We're gonna give you the top 3 cheers for your man. These are 3 things. There's a lot more in the book, but here's 3 things you can do that makes us men feel respected, all right? And first one's this, notice. Just write that down, notice, or put that in your brain. Notice what he does. I'm saying this, cheer who he is and cheer what he does. Cheer who he is and cheer what he does. And it starts with you notice the things he does. Anne started to notice the good. You know, she wasn't chopping the plant anymore. She was like appreciating and watering and fertilizing the good in me, and it made me be a better man. I'll never forget, back when we started our church, we used to have these little cards that we would put in the program for people to write down prayer requests. We call them CR cards, confidential requests. And they ended up being critique cards. People wouldn't sign their name. They'd just critique us. And I remember a season I got a whole stack of those where they were negative. They're like, you're not a good preacher. I don't like coming to this church. I don't think you have the gift of teaching, blah, blah, blah. And so I started to lose confidence, and I would feel I shouldn't even be on the stage preaching. And so I remember sharing with Ann one night that I was feeling that.
He came to bed and he was sharing all of that with me. And I'm just going to tell you how embarrassed I am to tell you this, but when he shared it, the first thought that came into my head was, you should read your Bible more and spend more time with Jesus, because then you'd be a better preacher and your messages would be better. I actually thought that. And in the past, I would have said that to him. Like, talk about boo, that's horrible. And so here's what I did. I went to God first and I said, God, should I say anything? That's a great thing to do. Just, God, should I say anything? And if I should say anything, God, what should I say? Put something in my mind. And you guys, instantly, I had this thought that came to my mind. And I said it to Dave. I said, I can't imagine what it's like to be you, that you have thousands of people dependent on your walk with God. Like, that's a weighty thing, and I would hate to feel that pressure. That's got to be really hard.
I mean, I'll never forget when she said that. I literally crawled over and I just hugged her, and I'm like, you are my life.
He did. He said that. He's like, you are my life. I cried that night because, like, he said that, you are my life. And what I thought was, how many times have I used my words to tear him down and to destroy him, thinking I was helping him and doing good, when all the time I had this power of influence to be able to speak life to him. And that made him want to be around me more.
And I'll tell you what, the fact that I said you are my life, that should help you women go, wow, that's at the core of a man. They are longing. It's honestly true. Women, listen to this. It's like we're little boys. And we're like 12 years old, even though we may be 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And we're just longing for someone to see us and notice what we do, how we work, how we sacrifice, and nobody sees it, and all they do is critique, and then your wife or somebody comes along and says, man, I see it, I notice. Oh my gosh, it brings life to the soul of your man, to the soul of your sons. I'm telling you, this is big for men. It's simple, just cheer them.
And I'm going to add this too, for those of you who are in blended families, and you have a stepdad. He feels so insecure of not feeling like he knows what he's doing all the time, especially if you have kids that he's now parenting. make sure you encourage him and give him advice. Advice, not advice, critiquing advice, but honey, you're doing a great job. Like, go there with him.
So here's the second one. Speak life. Don't just notice it, but then speak life out to him, out to them. You know, it's interesting. I want to change this illustration here that's in our notes.
Okay.
Because to speak life, it was what Ann did that night, but it's like you got to go to God first and ask him, should I say this? How should I say it? When should I say it? And it's interesting. Share this story.
I don't even know what he's going to say.
I know, but it's a powerful story about when you were complaining about our boys and you're walking through the woods.
Yeah. All our boys were teenagers at the time, and I was spent. I was angry, I was frustrated with them, and so I had to get out of the house. So I go on this 6-mile walk, and I am venting to God, like, God, are you seeing our kids right now? Like, they are out of control. There's no respect here. They're not listening. They're not doing. And so I go on this rampage of just going on venting to God about my kids. And then I said this to God, which was, I don't even know why I said it, but I said, God, what do you think of them? I kind of like, aren't you agreeing with all of this? And I stopped I didn't stop walking, but I stopped to listen to see what God would say. And this was one of the most powerful parenting moments I've ever had for our sons, because I said this to God, let's start with CJ. And so I said, what do you think of him? And I'm telling you the things that God told me about CJ. Here's the first thing that came to my head, just in my head, that I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying to me, isn't he the most fascinating person you've ever met? And I'm like, no, you know, like not really. But he goes, isn't he so unique? I made him in a way that he's without guile. He's like Nathaniel. You have to read about that in the Bible. He has no pretense about
and that
him.
is so CJ. It's like, well, that was right from God.
Yeah, and he just gives grace to everybody. So God's telling me about CJ, and then he goes to Austin. He's like Austin's like King David. He has that sensitive heart, but he has the heart of a warrior too. And I'm like, really? Yeah, okay. And then I'm like, what about Cody? He goes, oh, isn't he like Joshua? Cody's middle name is Joshua. And Joshua was the leader after Moses who led people. He goes, Joshua will be my man to lead thousands of people into my kingdom. He's a world changer. And I'm like, really? And so you guys, just hearing God's perspective, because I've actually had women come up to me and here's what they said. There's nothing good to say to my husband. There's nothing good in him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God doesn't see that. He sees all the good. Go back to when you first married him, because there was something good in him that made you want to marry him.
And here's the amazing thing. When Ann spoke that out to our sons, which I watched you do this the rest of the time.
It changed my parenting.
She spoke it out to me. I'm telling you, women, that brings a man alive. You notice, you speak life, all right? And then the last one is desire. And what do I mean by that? This is crazy. But this is how a man often thinks. It's like when my wife desires me sexually, it's respect. I don't know how to explain that to you. It just is. And we're going to talk about this next week a lot more. There's a whole section in the book on God's design for sex. But I'll tell you this. I remember one time I was speaking to our staff at Kensington, and I had my iPad, and it was the middle of the afternoon, and I get this text from Ann on my iPad as I'm teaching our staff, and it says something like, hey, big guy, I'm waiting for you at home. That's all it said, which I knew what that meant. And I'm like, okay, we're done. We got to go. I feel like God's telling me to end right now, and I'm rushing home right away. It's like, and I know that's crazy, and I'm not advocating sending texts, although that'd be a good thing. It was just like
in your marriage.
That thing in a marriage for a man actually is tied to respect.
Wow.
So, ladies, just hear this. Every guy is wired this way. He's longing for you to be his cheerleader. And it's a choice that you make based on, here's the thing I'll say to you. See your husband the way God sees him and say what God would say. And it's going to be life. It's going to be life. Okay, we're done with guys.
Yes,
let's talk about women.
Let's get to the women.
All right, it's really interesting. You go back to that passage. And again, I'll remind you, it said, Paul wrote this. He says, wives, respect your husbands. But he said to the husbands, you must love your wife as he loves himself.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Well, here's the thing. I think the word love has lost its meaning. We don't know what it means. We love ice cream. We love God. We love the Lions going to the Super Bowl. You know, whatever. It means nothing. But here's what guys do understand. Guys know what it means to cherish something. So change the word love to cherish, because guys, we cherish stuff. I have a TV, I have a motorcycle, you're not touching it.
Guitars.
I have guitars, they're in a humidified room. It's like, we know how to cherish stuff. I protect them, I talk about them, I study them. It's like, okay, what would it be if I did that for you? to cherish, to love you as you deserve. And so we gave you 3 cheers for a guy. I'm giving you 4 cherish moves. Why 4 and compared to 3? Because women are complicated and they get 1 more.
Because we deserve more.
Yeah, and they all start with the letter T. So guys, I start them with the letter T because I know you're like me. Just tell me what to do, man. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So here's the first thing. And again, you got to ask your wife what makes you feel cherished.
Yeah, because every woman's going to be totally different, especially more so even than men, of what we need even in this time period. And so here's the first one, is time. And that looks like, you guys, we still want you to pursue us. When we were dating, Dave and I were dating, he pursued me so much, and we still long for that. We've been married 38 years, and I'm like, still pursue me. Be with me, spend time with me, be romantic with me.
Here's what happens, guys, we get lazy. We just do. We get lazy. We pursue before the wedding, even maybe in the early months of the marriage, and then we just start pursuing other things that are important things, but we get lazy, and it's like, oh my gosh, I would just say to the guys, spend time with her. Here's an action step. We talked about it already. Start putting in your calendar a date.
Yeah.
Take her out on a date. I'd say it's your job. Get a sitter for the kids. You make this happen. Be intentional. And then on that date, you got to do number 2. The number 2 T is talk. And when you write this down, don't write T-A-L-K, write T-A-A-A-L-K, because they don't want to just talk. They want to talk about their relationship.
Well, honestly, Dave probably talks more in communication than I do at home, but I want to talk about our relationship and how we're doing, and that's when he shuts down, because you don't love to talk about that because he thinks he'll be in trouble. But women want to talk about, like, we want to know you and we want you to know us. And so take the time for that. Here's a question, guys, you could ask us as women, that some of your wives will cry if you ask them this. Honey, how are you doing? Just that. How are you doing?
I actually, when we first started learning this, I asked Ann, what do you want me to ask you on a date? And I had a pencil out, a little card, like, what do you want me to ask? She said, just ask me this. I'm writing it down. How are you doing? I'm like, you want me to ask you that? And so on dates now, I'm like, how are you doing? Because I tell you what, if you're like us, your life's busy, you're crazy,
right.
Kids doing all kinds of things, you don't talk.
And we want you to talk to us too in terms of how are you doing?
And here's a quick tip for the guys. When a woman wants to talk, she doesn't want us to fix and solve her problem. You hear me? She doesn't want that. I'll never forget learning that earlier in our marriage when Ann was having this just hard day. The kids were little, snot, poop, diapers, the whole thing. Some of you are there now. Thank God we're out of that stage. But it was just craziness. And I came home and she was just complaining about her day.
I'm sitting at the kitchen table and I start venting like, this is the worst day. Nobody has slept. Like, I haven't slept in weeks. And somebody has an ear infection and they're fighting. And so I'm going on like this. And Dave looks at me and goes, oh my gosh, I'm going to be right back. And so he goes upstairs. I'm like, where is he going? And then he comes down with a little piece of paper in his hand. And I thought, oh, he's written me a love note. And I'm all excited. I'm like, oh, and he hands it to me. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then it's numbered like 1 to 10. I'm like, that's weird, but maybe it's the 10 things I love about you, or the 10 reasons why you're this great mom. And so I'm like, oh, number 1, get more organized. And I'm like, wait.
Okay, that's enough.
What?
That's enough.
Number 2, use your time more wisely. I'm like, what is this?
I mean, it was a bad moment in our marriage because it's like I actually thought God gave me this. These 10 things she could do to get her life, better.
Because he looks at it and he goes, I feel like God gave me that. And I'm like, you think this was from God?
Tell him what you did. Go ahead.
I said, this was not from God. This was from Satan. And I rip it up and I throw it in his face.
She threw it in my face. And you know what? She should have. That was so, I honestly didn't know.
You thought that was helping me.
Yeah, I thought it was helping. I've learned, guys, are you hearing this? She doesn't want you to solve or fix her problems. She wants you to be a part.
Yes.
And enter into her world with her problem. What's that do? That makes her feel cherished. It makes her feel loved, that you are her partner. You are there.
Listen to us.
There may be a time to solve and fix. There are times now I say, what do you need from me right now?
That's the key. Did you hear that? What do you need? What would be most helpful to you right now? And sometimes I'll just say, I just need you to listen. Other times I'll say, I need your advice, but mostly I just need him to listen.
Yeah, so it makes her feel loved and cherished. What? Most women are like this when you spend time, when you talk, and then here's number 3, touch. Do you hear me, guys? Touch. And I know what you thought. You're like me. You're like, yeah, he's talking about sex. No, I'm not talking about sex.
We're not saying that's bad, but you know what we need touch as well as that? just non-sexual touch, just affection. Like when you're with her, put your hand on her leg, hold her hand when you're walking, put your arm around her. And some of you women, that may not be your thing, and that's okay, but tell your husband. But honestly, just to be affectionate, hold the door open, treat her like she's special, that you love her.
It's interesting. We read a book years ago that talked about the top 5 needs of a man and the top 5 needs of a woman. And the idea was if you don't know your spouse's top 5 needs, there's a chance for an affair. It's like you got to meet those needs. And I remember getting the book and looking at it. It said, number 1 need of men, this author said, was sex. I'm like, okay, I agree with that. I looked on the top 5 need of a woman. There's a chapter on each one, and sex wasn't in the top 5. So I'll never forget, I brought that book to Ann. I hadn't even read it yet, and I just said, hey, why isn't sex in the top 5? I can't believe it. It's number 1 for guys. It's not in the top 5. And tell them what you said.
I'm like, no, that sex is in all of those. That's a part of it. All of that is sex to us.
And so what the guy said, guys, you better write this down. He said the top 3 needs of a woman. Now, ask your wife, is this true for you? But he said this, I've never forgotten. I don't need to look at notes. I've never forgotten, because I went to Ann and said, is this true? And she said, yeah, pretty much true. Number 1, you writing this down, guys? Affection. What is that? Non-sexual touch. I didn't even know what that was.
And it's just caring, too. It's not just the touch part. It's just caring for us, noticing us.
Number 2, conversation.
Yes.
What's that? Talk, right? Number 3, honesty and openness.
We like that.
What's that mean? That means sharing your heart, vulnerable weaknesses. Here's the thing, guys. No other woman gets my heart.
Yes.
Only this one.
And the same for me as a man. No other man gets my heart. I think that's really important.
And so here you go. I told you there's 4 action steps to cherish your wife. Time, talk, touch. Last one's truth. And what do I mean by truth? Go vertical. Your wife longs for you as her man to take her to Jesus. I mean that. Am I right?
I would say go to Jesus with us, because so often sometimes as women, and it can be flipped. It can be either way. But I know for me as a woman, I want Dave with me or before me. Sometimes we're jogging back and forth and one is ahead and one's behind. But we want our guys to be with us, right on track spiritually, to share stuff that you're learning, or that's really big, to initiate prayer. We love that.
And that's why we said in the first week, pray daily together. I'm telling you, that's a spiritual move to go vertical, not just alone, but together. It can change your marriage. I'll end with this. Years ago, I made a New Year's resolution, which I don't often do, but the boys were little, and I said to Ann on New Year's Eve, I said, this year, I'm going to go, after we put the boys down to bed, I'm going to go to my office and get on my knees, and I'm going to pray for 5 minutes and pray about who they'll marry someday and their lives growing up. And I said, you don't need to join me. It's my New Year's resolution. Long story short, 17, 18 days into January, we're praying together every night.
Oh, yeah. When he did that, I'm in. I want to do that with you. This is awesome.
And it took 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't this big old deal, but I'll never forget, day 17, we're just about to get off our knees, and she grabs my arm, and she goes, hey, I just got to tell you this. I go, what? She goes, this just turns me on. And she sort of said it like that. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I don't know how to explain this, but doing this with you every day is romantic. It just makes me want you. It's very romantic.
I said it's like foreplay. It's you're so attractive to me right now.
Here's all I know. I remember that moment. I didn't say this out loud, but I thought, if this is how this works, I lead her spiritually. I was like, I'm going to become the Apostle Paul. It was crazy. But here's the deal. That isn't why you do it, but it's oh my gosh, when
I want to paint reality. Okay, I'm going to paint reality. We did that for a while, and then we don't do it on our knees every single night. So don't be on your husband or your wife you never do that. Don't hold it against them. But those are goals that you put in. Now, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say this. Women, cheer for your man. Men, cherish. And now you know what those words mean. Cherish your wife.
Women, here's your homework. Ask your husband or a guy friend, what does it look like to respect you? What can I do to respect you? Guys, ask your wife, what does it look like? Or single guys, to a friend, what does it look like for me? What would love look like to you? That's your homework.
You love Dave and Ann. I think it's so good, man. It's week 3. It's pretty incredible just to stop and consider everything God's doing. And it's so funny, Marie and I were talking about this, and like I said, she's home sick today with the kiddos. And I had somebody say, you should have had her up there, not you. And I'm like, man, come on, the encouragement. And we're talking. She's like, I think people are leaning in so much, like their book's taking off, and the podcast, and whatever, Today's Show, and this family life talk. And people are leaning in because people really want to know how to have a great relationship. They really do, don't they? We do. Like nobody's like, I'll have tension and friction and arguments. Like nobody wants that, but so many of us end up there. And it's like, well, how do we do that? And you're thinking, by the way, what's up with the wardrobe change? We're gonna be doing a commitment ceremony in just a minute. Isn't that cool? Right here in service in just a moment. And as we talk about relationships and we look at them, do you know that they've been weaved into narrative from the beginning of time? I'm convinced why vertical marriage and the series and such a big deal is because it's weaved into your heart and mine from the beginning of time, honestly. In Genesis, if you stop and you read it, it's so interesting because God begins to make these statements about creation. He says this first one, let there be light. And then he makes a statement, it is good. And then the next one, let there be the sky, the firmament above, and the waters below. And he puts separation in them. Then he makes a statement, it is good. And then the next one, he says, well, let's divide it further and create seas and land masses. And then he says the statement, it is good. And then let's make the sun that warms on our face during the day, and the moon and the stars, that two lovers would walk by and look up in the sky on a beach. And he says, it is good. And then the fish in the sea and the birds that fly through the air, and he says, it is good. And then he creates animals and he creates man, and he says, it is good. And he's looking at creation saying, this is great, but he stops and he looks at Adam. We see this in the story. And he says, oh my gosh, this is not right. Something's off. And look what he says. And the Lord says, it is not good. For the first time, he pauses the narrative. It is not good that man should be alone. No way. He said there's something missing. And he puts, the story, Adam into a deep sleep, and he creates, some translations say helpmate. Ladies, you're going to love this. It is not helpmate. It is the word ezer in Hebrew, and it actually means partner. It means the other half of the whole. Ladies, until you showed up, we were incomplete. Did you know that, by the way? That's how that works. Look at it. People are clapping, standing on their feet, cheering. It's the truth. And God's creation, the reflection of God himself, was male and female. Both did he create them in his image. And he's saying when they're together, when they're in relationship, then the glory of God shines. And he's saying it was not good for Adam to be alone. And that's why this series is such a big deal. And we're pressing in saying, what do we do? And that's why Dave I love his points all the time, for us guys who need it simple. But there's something about commitment. There's something about that. And so today I'm going to invite, the first service was great. We had Keith and Eileen. They've been married for just a short time, 56 years. We got to renew their vows. It was so beautiful. Eileen, so sweet. She was up here crying, and I started crying. I'm like, I can't be out-cried by an old lady. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm like, what's going on? And we've got Mike and Monica Ginslat today. I'd love to invite you guys up. And so they're coming up. They're approaching 25 years. And so really, you all, along with me, we get the privilege to be part of this. And so Mike, I'm going to have you stand right here, and Monica here, and you're going to face each other, and you get to hold each other's hands. Isn't that nice? And we get to do this. And I love this because in a lot of ways, you both are saying almost 25 years ago, right? And just a few months that you were asking God, hey, do something great. And often in relationships, we say, God, at the minimum, can you just hold us together? When we seem to push each other apart, and he's done that. And really what you're saying by recommitting, you're saying, can you do it again? Can you do another 25 years? And so that's kind of what we're cheering today. I love when Dave said, all I hear is boo. We're cheering today. We're cheering for commitment in relationships. And you might ask, what keeps somebody together 25 years, and what keeps them together another 25 years? How does this work? And look what Paul said about this in love. He says in 1 Corinthians, love is this greatest thing that you'd ever could have in the middle of a relationship. He says love is kind and it's patient. I love that about that. Love keeps no record of wrongs. I bet there's been things, right, Monica, that Mike's done that you just got under your gut. But we won't talk about them now. And you didn't keep record of them, which is great. And Paul's saying you can't keep record of them. He says this love rejoices when the truth wins out. I love that when Dave was saying and Ann was sharing, what is the truth? What does God say about Mike? What does God say about Monica? And you speak the truth to one another, and it builds you each up, and it binds you together only the way that love can. I love this, that love never gives up. Love never loses faith. Love is always hopeful, and love endures. I love this one so much. Through every circumstance. See, you stand up here and you see, well, that's great. That's easy for them. This has not always been easy, has it? Not at all. There's been circumstances and days and maybe weeks and even months for some of us. And we think, how do we do this? And the answer, honestly, I say, and I know you guys affirm this, is Jesus in between. He brings love. He brings kindness. He brings patience. He brings goodness. He brings the things, the ingredients that hold us together. And so now we get the great privilege for you to really recommit these vows. See, a vow is word. It's really a spoken word, but the spoken word is just the external. What you don't see is the internal. It comes from not just the human heart, but it comes from the soul itself. And so I'm going to allow you guys to say to each other some personal vows. And Mike, I'll let you lead out of those, and then we'll do formal vows.
Monica, it was 25 years ago that we committed to love one another. With you, my side, I have grown so much. We have evolved and transformed together. We have endured together, laughed and cried together. We raised a beautiful family together. You still have the power to surprise me with how much you care. My biggest desire is that we will still be celebrating these things in another 25 years. Thank you for being the one. Today I want to pledge my undying love to you again. I promise to be there for you always. I'm here for you as a supporter, your confidant, and your best friend. I love you. I couldn't be happier that we get to continue this journey together. With you as my partner, the best is yet to be. For this I pray.
I love that. Monica,
Boy.
you have vows.
Saying I do and committing myself to you 25 years ago was the best decision that I have ever made. The dedication we have to each other has made our relationship grow stronger with each year. Together, through Christ, we have learned to go vertical. Our faith and relationship with Jesus has become the foundation of our marriage. I thank God every day for making you my soulmate. Thank you for being the rock, spiritual leader, provider, and protector of our family. Thank you for being the most caring, giving, and loving dad to our 3 awesome children. Thank you for being my biggest supporter and best friend and bringing out the calm in me when I get a bit excited sometimes. I promise to continue to be faithful to you, and I'm so excited to see where forever takes us. I love you.
I love this. Now we've got some formal vows. What's beautiful about vows, that words, I've heard somebody say that words shape worlds, that when we speak, that things begin to come into existence. And so Mike, I'm going to ask you to repeat the words that I say, but you say them to Monica. And these words are almost recommitting, they're doubling down, and they're reshaping the world that God has built this first 25 years, and they're really asking God, do it again, do it another 25. I, Mike, take you, Monica, to be my wife.
I, Mike, take you, Monica, to be my wife.
My partner in life and my one true love.
My partner in life and my one true love.
I will honor our friendship
I will honor our friendship
and cherish our love.
and cherish our love.
I promise to trust and respect you
I promise to respect and trust you
in good times and in bad,
in good times and bad,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and health,
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
Monica, do you accept this vow from Mike?
I do.
Monica, the same thing you'll do is to repeat. I, Monica, take you, Mike, to be my husband,
I, Monica, take you, Mike, to be my husband,
my partner in life,
my partner in life,
and my one true love.
and my one true love.
I will honor our friendship
I will honor our friendship
and cherish our love.
and cherish our love.
I promise to trust and respect you
I promise to trust and respect you
in good times and in bad,
in good times and in bad,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
Mike, do you accept this vow from Monica? I love this. I feel like there's so much romance going on up here right now. I don't even know I can keep them apart. I love this part so much that you've really recommitted and given it such a great privilege in front of me and all these people, but most importantly in God. And you're recommitting the covenant that what God brought together, let no man, let no person bring apart. And so by the power vested in me in the state of Michigan, which I don't know how much that's worth, but more importantly, God himself, I pronounce you once again, husband and wife. Mike, I love this part. You may kiss your beautiful bride. Monica, we have a dozen roses for you because no bride should be without flowers, even on a recommitment day. I love this. As we stop and we ask, really as they are, almost as a community, our prayer today. In the middle of this, we're looking and saying, God, can you do miraculous things in relationships? Can you bind us together? Can you bring new hope? God, can you put wind beneath our wings once again, right? Kind of moment. And that's what we're asking God to do, and that's what I'm convinced he'll do for them. They're convinced of it too. They're banking everything they have on it, and we're banking everything we have on it too as a community. We're saying, God, can you do something again that you've done before that was so great, so spectacular, but we really need you to show up again. And we need to show up again. And we're saying, and like David and Ann have been cheering and chanting, go vertical. How does that happen? And we've been talking about this a lot. You didn't think I was going to do the second service, did you? I pulled them up first service too and brought them forward. And we do this often, don't we? We talk about this and we dream about this. And many of us on our team and our staff and people around here, and we talk about what would it look like if we asked God to do the unthinkable? If we asked God to give us a building, if we asked God to give us like 2,000 people by 2020, like crazy stuff, right? And we're asking God to hem relationships and to do unbelievable things, just asking God to do the unthinkable. Like that's what we want. That's what we want so much. And so we're asking that now. We're going to stop and we're going to pray just before we do the song called Do It Again. And it's an incredible song. It's talking about Joshua going around these walls of Jericho, and he's begging God. He's in a place he had never been, doing something he had never done. He's saying, God, if you don't show up, we're toast, right? But if you do show up, it's a game changer. And so I'm going to invite the ushers to go ahead and get ready to take the offering even now. And if you're a guest here, you don't need to feel the pressure to give. But if you're part of us and this ministry is impacting you and you're loving what's going on, I encourage you to give and to be part of this because you're not just giving now into programs, you're giving into people. You're giving into life change. You're giving into this thing called Takeover, where middle schoolers are going to put 60, 70 middle school kids on a bus and take them around all night long. Can you believe that? That's wild, man. All to introduce them to Jesus. Like, we get to do great things like this. We really do. And so I'm so excited about that. I just want to pray real quick. I know the ushers are gone. I'm going to pray real quick, and then we're going to get in the song. Father, we ask you to do again what you've done before. God, could you do it in our midst now? Will you do it in the future? God, we need you because I'm serious. Without you showing up, there's no point in recommitting. There's no point in dreaming. There's no point in any of that. But with you, Jesus, in the formula, in the equation, anything is possible. Everything is possible. Things we could only have dreamed of, hoped of, imagined are possible. That's what's amazing about you, Jesus. When you're there, things that weren't possible become possible. May you bless in your name, Christ. Amen.
I want to invite you guys to stand with us. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. For you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. 'cause you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. You promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness. Still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness. Still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Seen you move the mountain. I believe I see you do it again. Made a way, there was no way. I believe I see you do it again. See you move the mountains. I believe I see you do it again. Made a way, there was no way. I believe I see you do it again. You move the mountains. I believe I see you do it again. Made a way when there was no way. I believe I see you do it again. See you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness. Still in your hands.
so good, man. I said this last service, but I figured, don't you feel fortunate? I feel fortunate. You're an incredible team, doing an incredible job. Aren't you thankful for them? I really am. Well, I hope you had fun today and learned a lot. It's like, man, great music, great teaching with Dave and Ann. You got to see a recommitment ceremony. Thank you, Mike and Monica. We love you guys. By the way, there are marriage mentors, some of them, and if you ever need help in your marriage or you're interested, you've married for a long time, things are going good, we plug marriage mentors, something we're going to keep pushing here. We believe around great marriages come great families and great communities, right? So if we can be a help, let us. So God bless you. We love you. Don't get blown away in the windstorm later today, and have a great weekend, okay? See you guys.